Yo everybody, it's me, Buster Green, and this is our latest update on the live-action Gundam movie that seems to definitely be happening because someone really wants it to happen. So, I used to do videos on this movie a lot in the past, but I haven't in a while. I guess this movie has something of an unstable and unclear history, and recently I found out more details about what happened here. So let's just start from the beginning. Once upon a time, Anime Expo 2018, there was announced that there was going to be a good triple cooperation between legendary anime studio Sunrise, Legendary Pictures, and Netflix to create a Netflix live-action Gundam movie, in the style of most Netflix live-action things, presumably telling the story of the original 1979 Mobile Suit Gundam with Amuro, Char, and the One-Year War and all that, but in live action. And this was juxtaposed at a time when Netflix had previously been burned by the collapse of their Marvel TV Daredevil deal and had decided, well, fuck Marvel and fuck superheroes all in general. Anime is the future. Anime is the next big thing. So Netflix was all in on producing as much anime-adjacent movies and content as possible. So the film was initially being written and produced by veteran Canadian comic book writer Brian K. Vaughan. Vaughan was famous for being a writer on Lost. He was a producer on that show Under the Dome. I never saw that, but it looked interesting. And he also created the series Why the Last Man, which apparently was a really good comic book series, but I did not like the TV show because it aired like right when the pandemic was starting, and then it was literally about a pandemic, and there was a pandemic in real life, so it was just absolute horrible timing on like everybody's part. Anyway, so I guess Brian wrote the screenplay, and then it took him 3 years to write it. 3 years later, legendary Netflix approved the screenplay, and they were okay to make this thing, and so they moved forward in 2021. At that time, Jordan Voight Roberts was brought in. He had previously directed Kong Skull Island, and I like Kong Skull Island, so I thought he was a good choice. Roberts immediately put out a fan reassurance video where he built a new Gundam Gunpla on stream, and I was relatively relieved after seeing this video because it made me think that Roberts' head was in the right place and that he was going to do a decent movie with everything considered. So then the last update I had was that Jordan and Vaughn had all their ducks lined up and filming was supposedly scheduled to start on the Netflix version of the Gundam movie in early January of 2024, but I guess something went completely wrong because as far as I know, despite that January deadline, they never actually casted anyone to the cast. So that was all 3 years ago, and then it's been all radio silence ever since. We got one picture of the Gundam doing a very Gundam Unicorn-esque escape into a flaming hangar, and then after that, it's completely unclear what happened. So today I'm going to try and put the puzzle pieces together and figure out what happened. Well, we don't exactly know the full layout of what happened from 2021 until now. The most suspicious world event that happened during this time was the 2023 SAG-AFTRA strike, where numerous Hollywood productions got full-on destroyed because they were unable to use their actors and then deals fell apart. So that's my first theory, that just during the SAG-AFTRA strike, they couldn't secure a cast and somehow the deal fell apart. But if I actually had to take a guess at what happened, a bigger culprit in the production was because our last big movie was Jordan Voight Roberts putting out this video in 2021. You know what else happened in 2021? Live action Cowboy Bebop, which was a total disaster and got its second season plug pulled in under 21 days. So yeah, Netflix's whole thing in 2018 was they wanted to become the MCU for anime, but over the past 5 years of them actually playing out this plan, we've seen them greenlight numerous live action anime projects, and I want to say half of them have failed. The sole exception was 2023's live action One Piece, which ended up being an outlier. I'm going to talk about One Piece for a little bit right here. There's recently been a little drama with Netflix One Piece as it moved into season 2. Its showrunner has resigned with an unclear level of why and how long he's leaving for, if he's leaving for good or if he's just taking a break. During all this showrunner drama, we did get a fascinating information leak about why the showrunner was so important, and it's through the cracks that I can actually see a little bit of the gears grinding at how Netflix works. And yeah, after reading the story, I kind of super appreciate the showrunner on One Piece, Matt Owens. So I think this was kind of public knowledge all through 2021 and 2023, but I actually haven't seen it laid out clearly before now until Matt Owens resigned and when people laid down the pieces with a better perspective. So live action Netflix and live action Cowboy Bebop. two sides of the same coin in many ways because they were made by a large number of the same people behind the scenes. But one was a complete failure and one was a complete success. And a lot of people have tried to determine why one succeeded and one failed. On both projects had this clause that the original creator of each original anime, in Cowboy Bebop's case, Shinichiro Watanabe, and in One Piece's case, Ichiro Oda, were allowed to give notes on the production. So once upon a time in 2021, Shinichiro Watanabe submitted his notes for the live-action Cowboy Bebop. And you know what the showrunner for the live-action Cowboy Bebop did? He threw them in the trash. I don't think he even read them. He was a complete disrespectful fool. He discarded, ignored, and completely threw away all the original showrunner's notes about what live-action Bebop could have been if they had fixed it. The notes were just never taken into consideration, never acted upon, and for that reason, live-action Cowboy Bebop turned into hot trash. But One Piece is the exact opposite. In One Piece, Matt Owens had love and respect for Ichiro Oda and understood that the show lived and died by his command. So when he got Oda's notes, he did as many of those notes as possible that were feasible within the show's budget. So yeah, imagine that. Listening to the people who had the idea in the first place turned out to be a good idea. Now that tangent aside, I'm guessing that Netflix might have ended up getting cold feet on live-action Gundam after making live-action Cowboy Bebop, and they might have pulled the plug at that point. Now, I think it's also worth mentioning that similarly around the same time, there was an insane filmmaker named Carl Rinch who had worked on one movie and had sold his second movie to Netflix. He was given a $60 million budget by Netflix to make it, but then in a hilarious twist, he wasted 100% of that $60 million on his insane gambling addiction. He spent it all on fucking racehorses and crypto. It's possible that in the aftermath of this guy, apparently Netflix might have gone harsher on their filmmakers and producers to make sure they were actually producing things and not just spending all the money on drugs. Now, according to insider information that I have at this moment, I've heard an unconfirmed rumor that for whatever reason, Netflix has walked away from the Gundam project. And yeah, there's a line here on this Deadline article that also seems to indicate that this is true. So if this rumor is true, if Netflix is no longer involved in the legendary Gundam movie, then they have lost probably at least half of their budget, if not more. So yeah, it looks like for whatever reason, possibly after the live action Cowboy Bebop failure, Netflix pulled away from Gundam and they pulled their funding. And without their funding, they could no longer afford Voight Roberts and Vaughn, and both of them quit the project. Now, overall, that friggin' sucks because since I had been following this project closely, I did have some amount of confidence that those two guys wouldn't have fucked it up. But yeah, this friggin' sucks, and I guess the project went into like a complete washout when like they lost their script and everything. So while I was digging through all my old files on the Netflix version of this movie, there was something I came across that had completely slipped my mind, but I think it's worth mentioning today. The original deal was that Netflix and Legendary were going to spit out the Gundam movie, and then afterwards, if the Gundam movie had gone well, they were then going to work for the next several years on a huge live-action My Hero Academia film series, seemingly in the style of the Harry Potter movies, where each year a movie would come out and the UA kids would be a year older and like go over what they did that year. Now, apparently, as I looked into that again today, Legendary is also still working on that. But once again, I don't know if that's also in the same situation as the Gundam movie, where Netflix has pulled their funding and therefore the film's budget. Now, in January, the project came back to life. Ironically, it started over from step one. And from my perspective, because I'd been following it very closely before, I started having deep levels of deja vu. I started seeing a lot of deja vu content. Relatively, I saw the same stuff I was seeing in 2018 and 21, just tweaked to be like 10% different. They even recycled the same stupid poster announcement for 2021 and acted like it was a brand new poster. So that was sus to me. Now, the main reason I didn't cover the story in January, and I'm glad I didn't, was because all they had in January was this deja vu nothing burger. And I'm glad I waited because now, 3 months later, I have a more confirmed grasp about what happened to the 2021 version and why that's not happening and why it fell apart. Now, I'm on the fence, though, about if this new version for 2025 is going to be better, because I did have some faith in the 2021 just because, like, I like Kong Skull Island, I like Lost, I thought Under the Dome looked interesting. So yeah, I had a lot of faith in that version. This new 2025 version, it seems a lot sketchier to me. So 2025 comes around, we're in January now, the movie is re-announced, and here's all we know about the 2025 version. Netflix is out, but a lot of the Netflix staff is still in. Legendary is still in, Sunrise is still in. but a majority of the things from the previous 2018 and 2021 versions are gone. Everything that Netflix agreed upon is gone, but I want to suppose that the CGI tests that Legendary did are probably still valid because Legendary is still doing the CGI. So the Gundam presumably will still look like this even in the new version. Now, in the 2025 version, our new replacement for everything is Jim Mickle. Honestly, this kind of worries me because I just don't think Jim Mickle is as good as the guys who were there before. Jim Mickle was previously the showrunner and director of the Netflix series Sweet Tooth, and that's literally all he's ever done. Now, I didn't watch Sweet Tooth because it had some freaky animal hybrid children, and that was disturbing to me. But yeah, that's the only credit to his name, and he's never done anything before since that, which worries me because he's relatively like a greenhorn. So supposedly Mickle is now taking on single-handedly the writing, producing, and directing roles of this project all to himself, which seems like a bad idea to me because of the skill this movie has to be executed at. Now, I definitely feel like on top of the new version having less money to work with, less staff, and more people doing multiple jobs, these are all red flags to me, and this makes me kind of concerned that as bad as the Netflix live action could have been, this new version is actually going to be worse. Now, despite Netflix's overall live action failure rate, I am concerned that this new version of the movie has just less money to succeed, less people like supervising it, and it's a fucking Gundam film. It's got to be a huge budget or it's not going to be decent and we're going to end up with G-Savior again. So then April Fool's Day rolled around yesterday and we got kind of random news out of nowhere that seems to be real, despite everyone making April Fool's pranks on Sydney Sweeney. She was the hot girl from Madam Web after all. Anyway, Sydney Sweeney has been announced to star in the Gundam film in some capacity. Her role is not completely locked down, but they want her to be the star of the film. Now, Japan seems to be about 60% convinced she's going to be Sayla, and if not Sayla, then they're 40% convinced she's probably going to be Rambo Rao's wife, Hammond Crowley. But in America, because it was April Fool's Day, all bets were off and no one was taking this seriously at all. People were joking she was going to be gender-swapped Amuro or Char. People were joking she was going to be Frau Bo or Zenazabi or Matilda or literally anyone. She'd just come in and get exploded. Oh, and some a-hole just tweeted that Sydney is playing Machu. Screw you. If G-Quax gets an American remake before Gundam Wing, I'll completely lose it. I guess that's the overall update on the live-action version. Overall, the movie is still happening, but because Netflix has pulled out as a creative partner, I want to say without Netflix, it definitely jeopardizes both the movie's chance of getting finished and being good. But hey, at least since it's not a Netflix original anymore, I guess it will get a full theatrical release, and that makes it more likely it's going to work with one of the big theater studios. I feel like Sydney Sweeney thing is also a stunt cast to try and get some hype rolling and attract a major partner to a major studio. Now, I want to say because it's Legendary, they're most likely to work with WB because they have a big history with them. As it is on Friday, the Minecraft movie is coming out, and that is a Legendary Warner Brothers collab joint. They might not want to take a risk with WB because of Zaslav being insane and their recent string of failures. They just need some kind of partner to replace Netflix. They might also be going to Sony because Sony has produced a lot of Sydney Sweeney's roles and they're Japanese, so they would respect Gundam. So maybe they'll make a deal with Sony or maybe also Amazon. Amazon is also liable because they also have some Japanese deals and they're hosting Gundam G-Quax this month. Anyway, so yeah, those are the biggest three paths forward I can see for them right now. Either way, this movie is still coming, but yeah, these latest updates on it do not make it sound good to me. All right, what do you guys think about all this? Leave a comment, let me know. I'll catch you later if there's any more solid information. Thank you.